In this video, I'm going to start the rebuild process on this Traxxas T-Maxx 3.3 nitro-powered monster truck. Hey everyone, welcome to Adventure RC1. My name's Greg, and this is the first video in a series on rebuilding this Traxxas T-Maxx 3.3. I bought this used as a part of a combo with two other RC vehicles off of Facebook Marketplace. If you'd like to check out what those other vehicles are, I'll have a link down in the video description. To get this T-Maxx back up and running, I'm going to do it the cheapest way possible to figure out what's working and what doesn't work. I'm going to get the body off, and I think a great place to start, and also the simplest, is going to see if the radio gear works between the transmitter and the truck, and if the servos are in good condition. I've already turned the motor over by hand and with the electronic starter, so it's not seized up, but it's really slow and it's really gummy. I don't know if that's just the after run oil sitting in there for upwards of, I don't know how many years, or if there's some corrosion that's taken place from leftover fuel left in there. That leftover nitro fuel has a tendency of corroding and taking out the bearings in the engine. So I'm going to check that out next. But first, I'm going to grab some batteries, get them chucked up in the gear, and let's see if we can get those servos moving again. Here's $2.50 in AA batteries, the cheapest way to test out the radio. Of course, I'd never actually run this nitro-powered beast off of these super cheap batteries, but for now, let's see if the radio gear works. Fingers crossed, we'll power this on, and yeah, I got a red power light, so at least the transmitter looks like it's working. Next up, I'm going to get the battery box off and get the batteries in that receiver. Transmitter's on, and the truck is on. I think we might be good. I've got some throttle action. I'll lift the front up and see if we can turn the wheels. Kind of. I can turn right and everything looks good. When I turn left, it looks like it gets a little jittery. And here's my first clue that something's going on with the steering servo. It's already been taken out once before, I can tell, because the mounting screws are different colors on both sides. I'm going to just start out by decoupling the servo horn from the servo motor and see if there's something loading it down, making it twitch, or if this servo motor is just seeing better days. I've got the servo horn off, and since I've got that off, I reset the trim for the steering back down to 0. It was cranked all the way to one side before. And now let's check this out again. I've got a little black mark on the servo when I turn to the right. Nice and smooth, and to the left, that was the problem. That seems smooth as well. There's no twitching. So I think there's something in the steering system that was loading down the servo motor, making it twitch. What do you think? Let me know down below by leaving a comment. Should I replace just the servo, or should I go and replace the whole entire radio system to something a little bit more updated? With that servo horn still off on the steering, I did check out if anything was binding in the front end. I didn't find anything, so I put the servo horn back on, and once you know it, now I can turn right and left, and the servo doesn't twitch. I mean, it's pretty slow, and it's always been underpowered, but right now I don't think anything's wrong with that servo once I went in there and took it apart and put it back together, so I call that a win. Okay, I think I found another culprit for that steering servo being twitchy. This is the end of the antenna. Look at all the loops and all the little knots in there. That can't be good. Now it's time to check out the engine. I'm going to clean this on the outside and the inside. And the best way to clean this is to use an ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to get my cleaning solution in here, get this warming up, and while that is warming up, that'll be a great time for me to remove the engine and get a better look at what's going on with the T-Maxx. The ultrasonic cleaner is going to need a solvent to clean that engine. I got some LA's Totally Awesome, and it lists everything it can clean. I read grease and oil. This will be perfect for cleaning up the engine. To speed this warming up, I'm going to start out with some hot tap water. How much cleaner to use? I don't know. I think if I put about this much in, that would get the engine clean, but I want to get it really clean, so I'll put in a bit more. I think that'll do the trick. I'll set the temperature to 55 degrees C. That's going to give me about 131 degrees Fahrenheit. And by the time this is up at temperature, I'll have the engine out of the T-Maxx. So if you're wondering why I'm pulling the engine out of this right away rather than just seeing if it will start, and that's because while I can turn the engine over by hand by reaching down inside and turning the flywheel, I can tell that the engine's gummed up, whether it's from the leftover after run oil that was put in the engine or just the leftover oil from the nitro fuel. And I want to see what's going on inside. The fuel lines here look pretty good. These might be able to be reused. This should just wiggle right out. Oh, I've got the throttle linkage. I need to get that off yet. And one wire to remove. This is a part of the glow plug starter. Check this out. Now that this is outside of the truck, this thing is absolutely huge, with most of it being the heatsink up at the top end. On the back, I've got the exhaust port and the one-way bearing for the start system. On this side, I've got the attachment for the slide carburetor. Here I've got the main needle adjustment and the flywheel and the bell clutch housing with the pinion gear. I'm going to get this taken apart a little bit more before it goes into the ultrasonic cleaner. A little while later, and I've got the bell housing, the clutch, and the flywheel removed. I removed the carburetor and the O-ring. On the back side, I've got the header gasket removed and the back plate. And now this is our first glimpse into the back of the engine to see how much cleaning we've got to do. Here's a good view of the back of the engine. And as I kind of suspected, it wasn't leftover after run oil that's down there. That's corrosion from leftover nitro fuel in the engine. That nitro fuel is slightly corrosive and it's going to chew up any metal that is slightly ferrous, like the crankshaft and the bearings that are found here and here. I'm going to continue the disassembly by removing the heatsink off the top. That way I can get the piston sleeve out, get that piston out, and then I can get a real good idea of what condition these bearings are in, and then I can remove the crankshaft and see what that looks like. I'll catch up with you in just a minute. As a part of disassembling the engine, I want to know if everything is good and everything is tight. When I was disassembling the heatsink off the top, I found one of the screws was loose. Another two weren't all that tight. Only one of them was really tight, and the last one just took a little bit to get it to crack free. Now, before I remove this off, I did mark a little bit on the top facing the front of the engine. That way this goes back in the exact same spot. It doesn't look too bad. I do see a little bit of a corrosion grit that's on the top side. Again, that's why I'm disassembling this. And just check out all the gunk that's down in there. Imagine if I started the engine up, it would run, but all the crap that's down here is eventually going to want to get up here before going out the exhaust. And this stuff that's going to be floating around, it's just going to be so abrasive and really wear this little engine out. This is the first nitro engine that I can't get the sleeve out of the main housing. I'm going to try throwing a little bit of heat on this and see if I can't get this sleeve to drop out, because I really do want to remove the piston so that I can get the crankshaft out. With some heat and gentle prying, the piston sleeve popped right out. And it looks like it's in pretty good condition. The piston looks a little bit worn, but definitely still usable. Before I removed it, I did put a little mark on the crankshaft. That way this goes in the proper orientation for reassembly. The crankshaft is out. We can get a much better look at the back. Look at all the garbage that's on the back. It gets even worse when we take a look at the air and fuel intake through the shaft. Just check out all the garbage that's on there. It's a good thing we're getting this cleaned up. And if I thought the crankshaft looked bad, I don't know if you can see down in there, but those bearings, they're all gummed up with residue and most of all, leftover nitro fuel that's just kind of corroded everything up. Originally, I had my doubts on placing this whole assembly in the ultrasonic cleaner because those tend to be a little bit hard on bearings, but seeing what these bearings look like, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Here's a view of the rest of the engine parts. I've got everything kind of laid out how it went together, keeping all the O-rings and screws by the related parts, and making sure that the parts face up so I know the correct orientation when everything goes back together. Next up, I'm going to get select parts and get them into that ultrasonic cleaner. A little while later and all the parts are nice and clean. Everything is looking good. I'm going to get these rinsed off with some water, and then to get that water to dry, I'm going to leave the heater on the ultrasonic cleaner, and I'm going to take the parts and place them on top because that cover is pretty warm. That's a nice gentle heat to get the rest of these parts all nice and dried off. And while these were being cleaned, I took some denatured alcohol and I cleaned out the carburetor. While I'm reassembling, I'm making sure that I'm lubing any moving parts. Just check this thing out. It's 10 times cleaner than it was before. I think this is going to be ready to go back into the truck and see if we can fire it up. But first, since it's out, I am going to connect a battery up to the starter motor and see if we can get this to turn over outside of the truck. And now for the big moment, let's see if I got everything reinstalled correctly. Whoa, look at that. Looks like I got everything right. Plenty of power and plenty of speed to get this engine started up once I get it reinstalled back in the T-Maxx. The engine's reinstalled in the truck. I've got the gear mesh set, the fuel lines reconnected. While I was doing all of that, I checked out some other stuff on the truck. I adjusted the seal for the gas tank lid because this tank does have to be pressurized to help push fuel into this thirsty little carburetor. While I was reassembling the truck, I also checked over a bunch of other things to see if I needed to get any replacement parts on order, and I've got a short little grocery list, which includes some clutch shoes, a clutch spring. When I was setting the gear mesh, I did see that the spur gear has a nick in it and it's missing one tooth. Should be okay for now, but I'm going to get one of those on order as well, along with a spare glow plug. All I need to do is add some fuel tank and this is ready to roar to life. So join me in the next video where I'll be doing exactly that, firing up this T-Maxx for the first time in probably many years. I hope you enjoyed this video and don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, or ring that notification bell. Not only is it a great way to help this channel grow, it's an excellent way to connect video content like this with other great RC enthusiasts just like yourselves. Well, until we meet again in the next video, keep on rolling.